Hail, Thunder Faithful, it's Mjolnir Monday, December 10th, and it's time for your Weekly Thunder. You know, it's funny how for weeks now I comment on here about how bleak Monday Night Raw gets, and I don't think it could get any bleaker, and then last Monday, this Raw started off with a promising tag team match with Ronda Rousey and Natalya versus Nia Jax and Tamina. And then it turned into Jax and Tamina keeping Rousey busy while the Riot Squad beat up on Natalya and threw her through a table, injuring her elbow. So yeah, it was turning into that kind of Raw until the head of the women's division, Alexa Bliss, came out to try again with the audience Q&A with Sasha Banks and Bayley after last week's attempt ended with an ambush by Mickie James, Alicia Fox, and Dana Brooke. A couple highlights of this one was the finally bringing up women's tag team championships that everybody's been calling for, and Sasha Banks calling out commentator Corey Graves for always saying she's a fake friend and traitor. James, Fox, and Brooke tried to ambush them again, with Alexa stopping them with a level of authority only possessed by the goddess, and reprimanding them again before setting up a tag match of James and Fox against Sasha and Bayley, which ended with Bayley beating Mickie by submission. So heroes can exist here. Afterwards, Alexa let Ronda find another tag team partner for another crack at Nia and Tamina, and it was Ember Moon. When it finally came time, Nia pretty much let Tamina do the work, and Ronda and Ember made short work of them. On the men's side, the Rawvengers started to take shape when acting GM Baron Corbin, not calling him General Manager-elect, held Drew McIntyre Appreciation Night for all the reasons worse than the real Jeff Hardy Appreciation Night. Dolph Ziggler came out to find out why he's been pushed aside and forgotten, to which McIntyre broke up their friendship and they started a match. Finn Balor came out to watch, and when a ref got knocked over, he laid out McIntyre, who barely got back to the ring in time, only to get super kicked and pinned by Ziggler. Afterwards, Elias came out to perform and, of course, was interrupted by Bobby Lashley and Lio Rush. But Elias wasn't having it this time and chased Lashley back to the waiting room and Lio Rush into hiding near the commentator booth until he was thrown back into Elias's waiting guitar by Finn Balor. Corbin had enough of this pushback and set Balor up for a match with the modern-day sellout Maharaja, Jinder Mahal. Balor was getting the upper hand on Mahal until the Singh brothers that accompany Mahal started to interfere, and then Apollo Crews came out to handle the Singhs, and Balor was victorious. Sadly, this wasn't a good night for all the good guys, as a singles match between Bobby Roode and Drake Maverick turned into a 3-on-2, conveniently changed by Corbin after the AOP beat up on Chad Gable in the locker room. Gable valiantly got back up and made his way back to the ring to help his mentor, but all for naught. However, overall, to paraphrase Poe Dameron, Finn Balor became the spark that will light the fire that will burn down the Raw order. And before we move on to SmackDown, let me just point out that Alexa Bliss has actually been doing her job very well, keeping things fair and keeping a leash on the heels, even those who are her best friends, Mickie James and Alicia Fox, which might not be the case anymore, thank Odin, and not abusing it constantly like Corbin. Maybe when Braun and or the Rawvengers take him down at TLC, Stephanie McMahon will appoint Alexa GM. Maybe this was Alexa's plan all along. She's friends with Braun and knows he can take down Corbin on a decent playing field. She does her job as women's division head wonderfully, and Stephanie will look to her to replace power-drunk Corbin. She won't be medically cleared to wrestle until at least Royal Rumble next month, so we shall see. One more side note in the Rollins-Ambrose feud development. Dean came out with guys dressed in SWAT gear and gas masks. He too was wearing a gas mask and a leather and fleece coat, so not only is he a germaphobe now, but he's also Bane. It ties in nicely as Roman Reigns is Aquaman with a Superman punch, pretty much. Yet Bane Dean can't break Seth the Batman's back, so he got chased, then Dirty Deeds'd him again. Isn't Dirty Deeds unsanitary, though? Not a whole lot as far as news happened on SmackDown Live. Becky, Charlotte, and Asuka signed their contract, then Asuka and Charlotte had a tag team match with Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville, who as of late have been losing a lot, but Asuka Charlotte just kinda self-destructed. Hey, good for Mandy and Sonya. The new Daniel Bryan came on Miz TV in a highly anticipated segment, as it seemed Bryan had adapted the whatever it takes mantra from his former mentor and rival, but really it was just Bryan enviro-shaming the WWE Universe and chanting, "Fickle! Fickle! Fickle!" Also, AJ Styles came out because getting kicked in the dick is not just something you let go, and strangely enough, Miz and Bryan teamed up to subdue Styles. It's strange, but I'm fascinated to see where the new Daniel Bryan goes from here. In a dark match, which are random untelevised matches that take place after the cameras stop rolling, the new Daniel Bryan faced The Miz and took to his heelness very well by shaming a kid about his birthday being stupid or something, and Miz did something surprisingly babyface fashion and led the WWE Universe in chanting happy birthday for the kid. So strange. Hey, do you like Marvel and trailers? And Marvel trailers? Well, we got 2 this week. 3 if you count video games. The new Captain Marvel trailer premiered during Monday Night Football's halftime, and it showed more Super Saiyan Carol. It had Annette Bening get ahead of the plot hole seeking fanboys by pointing out how she'll age slower, hence why she'll look the same in the new Avengers. There's an early version of the Quinjet. There's even more Skrulls, including the lady that got punched in both trailers. She is most definitely a Skrull. We know this now. Also, there's her cat Goose. Changed from Chewie in the comics, her cat is an alien that has tentacles and pocket dimensions on the inside. No, this isn't how Fury's going to lose his eye. Maybe. Also, a little bit more Jude Law, who everyone assumed was going to be Marvel, but due to a Funko toy leak, it's actually way more likely he's Jan Rog, who's a major enemy of Marvel's. This takes us to our next trailer for the next Avengers, which is called, drumroll please, Avengers Endgame. Breathe easy, people. We have a title. We are leaving 2018 with a title. This movie does exist. It started with Tony Stark stranded in space inside the Guardians' new ship, possibly with Nebula. He's recording a message for Pepper and said it's been a few days without food, so there is some time passed, but not a whole lot, like the tie-in books say. He does mention rescue, which links to what we already know about Pepper, who will be wearing her rescue armor in this movie, and either she or Captain Marvel will be the one to get Tony out of space. There's Hawkeye as his new Ronin identity, killing fools in Japan. His Ronin persona came about in the comics after his family was killed, and since this is post-decimation, it's likely they're dust. Banner is looking at a hologram of missing people, including Scott Lang, who we last saw in the Quantum Realm, Spider-Man, who they didn't even know went to Titan, and Shuri, which means she's dust too, unless she got out of Dodge after the decimation to go on her own secret mission. But if not, then they would have known she survived, as she was in the vicinity. So she's probably dust. There's also Thor wishing he aimed for the head, and Steve crying and looking at his picture of Peggy. Half the population is dust, but a 75-year-old picture is intact. Good maintenance, Steve, who's wearing the fan-favorite uniform from the Winter Soldier. Also, Thanos is still chilling, turning his armor into a scarecrow and tending his crops with the melted gauntlet still on his hand. The trailer ends with Steve and Natasha looking at the live feed front door camera at the compound, and they see Scott Lang asking to come in, and they're as surprised as we are. I guess he's not in the quantum realm forever, but how that happens is anyone's guess until April 26th. Also, a couple trailers relevant to this show dropped at the Game Awards Thursday night. Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3, The Black Order, that will be exclusively for the Switch, will feature pretty much every major and semi-major Marvel character and seem to center around Thanos and the Black Order, hence the title, and because why not, Infinity stuff is kinda relevant now. I just like how the greatest Spider-Man game is PS4 only, and the first Ultimate Alliance sequel in 10 years is Switch exclusive, but Xbox doesn't get shit. I mean, fuck us, I guess. The next trailer is for a series that has never been talked about on here, but is connected to DC as they've had a Versus game against them. There's been a DC comic series for this, and Warner Brothers owns them too, and that's Mortal Kombat! I've been yelling about how MK could have a successful cinematic universe and has such a rich world and cast that could appeal to audiences through many mediums and could grow beyond the medium it started on, like Marvel and DC. Mortal Kombat 11 started out with Evil Raiden, or Thor with a hat if you want to go there, and Scorpion fighting, Raiden smashing his face in, and then a different Scorpion turning into straight fire and burning right through Raiden and shooting his spear into Raiden's decapitated head. There's a mysterious woman watching the fight through an hourglass, and a lot of things to suspect time travel and a multiverse is at play. Like I said, Marvel and DC. Friday night, I had the opportunity to watch Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse a week early, and oh man, it was amazing. No pun intended. It was hilarious, it had heart, it gave the proper amount of attention to Miles Morales with his origin story and building his character and his coming into being Spider-Man, very faithful to his comic and Ultimate Spider-Man, before jumping into the Spider-Verse part of the story. This was also the cinematic debut of Spider-Gwen after a forgettable live-action premiere in Spider-Man 3, and then her traditional tragic storyline in The Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2. This take is just as fun and refreshing as the Spider-Gwen comic. Now I just wonder how long till we see Gwenpool. I know you want it too, Reynolds. Leave Hugh Jackman alone and make it happen. And finally, the animation. It took me a while to get used to it when the previews first showed up, but I did get used to it, and all for the better, because they did so much more with the animation than the previews let on, and it's such a visual treat. And there are some sequences that it looks like you're living through some kind of amazing motion comic. All in all, this movie is so incredible you won't be able to believe Sony pulled it off without the help of Marvel Studios. What a great way to kick off a month chock full of comic book movies with Once Upon a Deadpool and Aquaman coming up. Side note, do keep in mind here that Miles' Uncle Aaron was also Donald Glover's character in Spider-Man Homecoming. If you don't already know how his story unfolds, just keep that tidbit in mind during the movie. Just let that mess with you. And that's your Weekly Thunder for December 10th. I'm Sexy Thor. Make sure to find us on all the socials, and remember to drink, fight, and make your ancestors proud.